They say a wedding is the happiest day of a woman's life. But no one talks about the woman standing quietly at the back of the reception hall, invitation in hand, watching the man who abandoned her while she was pregnant 6 years ago now exchanging vows with someone else. No one mentions the feeling when the child you gave birth to, the one he once tried to erase with $800, suddenly appears at the wedding and someone exclaims, "That boy looks just like Ethan when he was little." I didn't come here to ruin a wedding, but 6 years of silence is enough, and sometimes the truth is the cruelest wedding gift you can give. The invitation arrived like a ghost from another life. Cream-colored cardstock edged in silver, my colleague Emma's excitement palpable as she handed it to me. "I can't believe I'm getting married in 4 weeks. You'll come, right, Naomi? I want everyone from the publishing team there." I smiled automatically while my fingertips went numb against the heavy paper. There, embossed in elegant lettering, "Emma Matthews and Ethan Moore cordially invite you." Ethan Moore, the name I'd trained myself not to say aloud for 6 years. Of course, I heard myself answer. I wouldn't miss it. Emma beamed, squeezing my arm before hurrying off to distribute more invitations. I stood frozen beside the coffee machine, staring at the name that had once been whispered against my skin, shouted during arguments, and finally, painfully erased from my life. Except not entirely, never entirely. That evening, I watched my son Finn building an elaborate spaceship from mismatched Lego pieces on our living room rug. His dark eyebrows pulled together in concentration, Ethan's eyebrows, Ethan's focused expression. 6 years old now, with no knowledge of the man whose DNA he carried. The man who had handed me cash for an abortion and disappeared when I told him I might keep the baby. Our apartment was small but deliberate. Warm yellow walls, photographs of our little 2-person adventures framed along the hallway, plants thriving on every available surface. I'd built this life methodically, brick by brick, after the demolition Ethan had left behind. "Mom, look!" Finn held up his creation. "It's got turbo boosters and an invisibility shield." "It's amazing, honey," I said, pushing away thoughts of Ethan, of the wedding invitation tucked in my bag. "Tell me how it works." Later, after Finn was asleep, I pulled out the invitation again. My fingers traced the raised letters of Ethan's name. 6 years since I'd seen him. 6 years of building a life where his absence was structural, not decorative. I'd made peace with single motherhood, with the quiet dignity of raising Finn on my terms. But now this, a wedding invitation, and suddenly I was unbalanced again. A novice tightrope walker in high winds. I tried to imagine Ethan at an altar, promising forever to someone else when he couldn't even face a weekend of responsibility with me. The thought made me laugh, a harsh sound in my quiet apartment. I should ignore it, send regrets, avoid the collision of past and present. Instead, I heard myself whisper to the empty room, "I'll go, not to cause a scene, not to demand recognition, but to stand in the same room with my past and not disintegrate, to prove to myself that I could look at him and feel nothing but distant pity for the woman who would now call him husband." I folded the invitation and tucked it into my dresser drawer beneath neatly folded sweaters. A decision made, though part of me wondered if it was courage or madness, the line between them thinner than I'd like to admit. The church was all stone and stained glass, sunlight streaming through in colored shafts. I'd asked Mrs. Chen from next door to watch Finn, explaining I had a work event. Her knowing eyes had softened when I mentioned it was a wedding. "Maybe you'll meet someone nice," she'd said, patting my arm. I'd smiled tightly, if only she knew what I was really walking into. I wore a simple blue dress, neither too flashy nor too subdued. Present but not demanding attention. My armor for the day. The church was already 3/4 full when I slipped into a pew near the back, nodding at a few familiar faces from the publishing house. And then I saw him. Ethan stood at the front, straightening his cufflinks, laughing with the best man. He looked the same but different, more filled out, hair shorter, but still with that easy confidence that had first drawn me to him. He hadn't yet noticed me. I watched him, feeling strangely calm. The Ethan who had shattered my world was now just a man in an expensive suit, preparing to make promises I doubted he could keep. Amenaio. Until he turned, scanning the gathering crowd, and our eyes met. The recognition was instant. His smile froze, then dropped entirely. I saw the color drain from his face even from this distance, saw his posture stiffen as if electrified. For an endless moment, we stared at each other across the church. Then he was moving, excusing himself from the best man, weaving through arriving guests with a determined stride. My heart hammered, but I remained seated, hands folded in my lap as he approached. "What are you doing here?" he hissed, looming over me, voice low enough that nearby guests couldn't hear. "Emma invited me," I said simply. "We work together." "You know what I mean." His eyes darted frantically around the church. "You need to leave, now." I looked up at him, this man I'd once thought I loved. "I was invited, Ethan. I'm here as a colleague of Emma's, nothing more." "Does she know?" Fear sharpened his features. About Finn?" I supplied when he couldn't finish. "About how you gave me $800 and told me to take care of it?" "No, she doesn't know. No one here does." Relief visibly washed over him, followed quickly by suspicion. "Then why come?" I held his gaze steadily. "Because I needed to see you and feel nothing." Confusion flickered across his face. "And now I need you to walk away and go marry Emma," I continued. "I'm not here to make a scene. I'm just a wedding guest." He stayed frozen for a moment longer, then nodded sharply. "Keep it that way," he muttered, turning to leave before pausing. Does he swallowed hard. "Does he know about me?" "He knows his father wasn't ready to be a dad," I said quietly. That's all. Relief and something like gratitude flashed across his face before he turned and walked back toward the altar, shoulders rigid with tension. I exhaled slowly, unclenching my hands. Phase 1 complete. I'd faced him and remained intact. Now I just needed to get through the ceremony and slip away during the reception. But as the music started and the bridal procession began, I caught Ethan stealing glances back at me, his expression no longer fearful but calculating. Something cold settled in the pit of my stomach. I realized then that I'd miscalculated. I'd come to prove to myself that Ethan no longer had power over me. But I'd forgotten how desperately he protected his image, how skilled he was at controlling narratives. And I'd just become a threat to the perfect story he was trying to write. The ceremony proceeded like a beautiful performance. Emma radiant in white, Ethan performing his role of adoring groom flawlessly. I watched it all with a strange detachment, as if observing a play rather than the legal binding of two lives. At the reception, I stayed at the periphery, nursing a single glass of champagne. The venue was spectacular, a converted historic mansion with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking manicured gardens. Music and laughter filled the space as guests mingled around elegant floral arrangements and ice sculptures. I was preparing to make my quiet exit when an older woman approached, tall, immaculately dressed, with Ethan's eyes and jawline. "You must be Naomi," she said, extending a perfectly manicured hand. "I'm Madeline Moore, Ethan's mother." My stomach dropped, but I shook her hand, keeping my expression neutral. "Nice to meet you. Ethan mentioned you were here." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "An old friend, was it?" The pause before friend held volumes. He'd told her something then, enough to send her as an emissary. "We knew each other some years ago," I said carefully. She nodded, taking a deliberate sip of her champagne. 6 years, if I recall correctly." My pulse quickened. She knew exactly who I was. "Ethan was quite distressed to see you here," she continued, her voice dropping to ensure only I could hear. I think we both know why. I remained silent, unwilling to confirm or deny anything. If you once had a relationship with my son, she said, each word precisely placed, then you should understand silence is the kindest thing you can offer today. Her eyes held mine, hard as flint, despite her pleasant smile. Some stories aren't meant to be told, especially not on a day meant for new beginnings. Before I could respond, she placed a hand on my arm, her grip surprisingly strong. We Moors always take care of our own. Whatever your situation, I'm sure we could discuss arrangements that would benefit everyone. My cheeks burned with sudden heat. Are you offering to pay me off? Her smile tightened. I'm suggesting that discretion can be rewarded. I stepped back, breaking her grip on my arm. I didn't come here for money. Then why did you come? She asked, her voice chilling. Certainly not just to celebrate Emma's happiness. Words failed me. How could I explain that I'd come to release myself from the past, not to disrupt their present? That I had no intention of exposing Ethan, but needed to face him on equal footing just once? Before I could formulate a response, commotion erupted near the dessert table. My heart stopped as I recognized the small figure being led by a concerned-looking server. Finn, my son, stood in the middle of the wedding reception, looking lost and confused in his dinosaur t-shirt and jeans. I moved toward him immediately, thoughts racing. Mrs. Chen was supposed to be watching him. How had he gotten here? As I reached him, he spotted me and his face lit up. "Mom, I found you!" I knelt down, hands on his shoulders. "Finn, what are you doing here? How did you get here?" Mrs. Chen had an emergency. Her daughter came to get her and brought me here because she said you'd be worried. He looked around wide-eyed at the elegant surroundings. "You didn't tell me you were going to a party." My mind raced. Mrs. Chen's daughter had my address for emergencies. She must have seen the invitation when picking up Finn and connected the dots. "This is a wedding, honey, for someone from work. We need to go now." But it was too late. A circle of curious onlookers had already formed around us, including Madeline Moore, whose face had gone alarmingly pale. "What an adorable little boy," said an elderly man, bending slightly to smile at Finn. "He looks just like Ethan did at that age, same eyes, same chin. Must be a family member." The room seemed to tilt sideways. I grabbed Finn's hand tightly as Madeline's eyes darted between my son's face and mine. Recognition and horror dawning simultaneously. "It's time for us to go," I said firmly, starting to lead Finn toward the exit. But the damage was done. Whispers followed us, rippling through the reception. I could feel Madeline's gaze boring into my back as we walked, could almost hear the frantic damage control she would attempt. We had nearly reached the door when a woman in white blocked our path. Emma, the bride. Her eyes were clear and searching, fixed not on me, but on Finn. "You're leaving so soon?" she asked, her voice carefully controlled. "Congratulations on your wedding," I said, attempting to sidestep her. "It was beautiful." She moved with me, preventing our escape. Ethan never mentioned having a child. The directness of her statement froze me in place. Behind her, I could see Ethan pushing through the crowd toward us, panic evident on his face. "I don't know what you're talking about," I managed. Emma's eyes filled with tears, though her composure remained intact. "Please don't lie to me. Not today, of all days." She looked down at Finn, who was watching the exchange with confused interest. "Is he Ethan's son?" I couldn't speak, couldn't lie to her face, couldn't confirm the truth that would destroy her wedding day. Instead, I gently pulled Finn past her, murmuring another congratulations as we finally escaped into the cool evening air outside. Behind us, I heard raised voices. Ethan and Emma's first married fight happening mere hours after their vows. In the cab home, Finn fell asleep against my side, oblivious to the storm we'd left behind. I stroked his hair, guilt and relief battling within me. I hadn't come to expose Ethan, hadn't brought Finn to force a recognition. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The next morning dawned with relentless sunshine that felt like mockery. I'd barely slept, replaying the disaster of the wedding reception over and over. My phone had exploded with messages, some from confused colleagues who'd witnessed the scene, others from Emma's relatives demanding explanations. I'd answered none of them. Finn was still asleep when the pounding on our apartment door began. Insistent, angry. I knew who it was before I opened it. Ethan stood in the hallway, still in yesterday's dress shirt, now rumpled and untucked. His tie was gone, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from what I guessed was a sleepless night or heavy drinking. Possibly both. "You ruined everything," he hissed, pushing past me into the apartment. I closed the door quickly, conscious of Finn sleeping down the hall. "Keep your voice down. I didn't plan any of this." "Bullshit." He paced my small living room like a caged animal. "You brought him there on purpose. Do you know what happened after you left? Emma postponed the honeymoon. Her parents are talking about annulment. I didn't bring Finn. It was an accident." I crossed my arms. "And I'm sorry about Emma, but I'm not responsible for the consequences of your lies." He ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "What was I supposed to tell her? By the way, I have a kid I've never met with a woman from years ago." "Yes, actually. That's exactly what you should have told her." He laughed bitterly. "Easy for you to say. You've had 6 years to build your identity around being a single mom. The brave warrior raising a child alone." His words hit like a slap. "You think I wanted this? You think I dreamed of raising our son alone while you went on with your life like we never existed? I gave you money for an abortion, and I gave it back. I told you I was considering keeping the baby, and you disappeared, changed your number, blocked me everywhere." He had the decency to look away. "I was 25. I wasn't ready." "Neither was I." The force of my own voice surprised me. 6 years of contained anger threatening to spill over. "But I didn't get to run away." A small voice from the hallway interrupted us. "Mom?" We both turned to see Finn standing there in his pajamas, hair tousled from sleep, eyes wide and uncertain. "Who's yelling?" he asked. I moved to him immediately, kneeling down. "Just a work friend, honey. Everything's fine. Why don't you go back to bed for a bit?" But Finn's eyes were locked on Ethan, curious and assessing in that unnervingly direct way children have. I saw Ethan staring back, color draining from his face as he took in the features so similar to his own. "You were at the party," Finn said to Ethan. "In the fancy clothes." Ethan swallowed hard, seemingly unable to speak. "Finn, why don't you go get dressed?" I said gently. "We'll have pancakes in a little bit." To my relief, he nodded and disappeared back down the hall. When I turned back to Ethan, he had sunk onto my couch, head in his hands. He started, then stopped. "He's 6, I supplied. "He likes dinosaurs and space. He's learning to read. He has your allergies to strawberries." Ethan looked up, his expression unreadable. "I can't do this, Naomi. I can't be his father. I have a life, a career, He stopped short of saying wife. "No one's asking you to be his father," I said quietly. "It's a bit late for that." "Then what do you want?" Frustration edged his voice. "Money? Child support? I'll pay it if you'll just—" "Just what?" I cut in. "Disappear again? Keep your secret? Let your new wife think it was all a misunderstanding?" He didn't answer, which was answer enough. Something broke inside me then. The last thread of hope that he might show a shred of responsibility, of decency. "Emma deserves to know who she married," I said. "And Finn deserves to grow up without thinking he was a mistake, so shameful he had to be hidden away." "What are you going to do?" Alarm sharpened his features. I stood straighter, a decision crystallizing. "I'm going to tell the truth, not to hurt you, but because silence has cost me too much already." "Naomi, please." My phone rang, interrupting his plea. Emma's name flashed on the screen. I looked at Ethan, then at the phone. "I think it's time we all stopped hiding." The hotel ballroom was eerily quiet as I stepped inside. The wedding reception had been meant to continue here today, a brunch for out-of-town guests. Instead, the space felt like a funeral home, with clusters of people speaking in hushed tones. Emma sat alone at what should have been the head table, still in yesterday's wedding dress, though her veil was gone and her carefully styled hair now hung loose around her shoulders. She looked up as I approached, her expression unreadable. Ethan was nowhere to be seen. I'd left Finn with Mrs. Chen again, properly this time, after explaining that I needed to fix a misunderstanding. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, I'd told him, and then we have to make them right. Emma watched me cross the room, neither welcoming nor hostile. Just waiting. "Thank you for coming," she said when I reached her. Her voice was steady despite the evidence of tears on her face. "I wasn't sure you would. I owe you the truth," I said simply, taking the seat beside her when she gestured to it. "Ethan's not coming," she said. "He thinks I've invited you here to ambush him." "Have you?" A sad smile. "No, I just couldn't marry someone I don't really know." She twisted the diamond ring still on her finger. "He admitted everything after you left. Well, after I threatened to call you directly." I waited, letting her lead the conversation. 6 years, she said softly. "A child. He said he was afraid of losing me if I knew." "I'm sorry," I offered, meaning it. "This isn't what I intended when I came to your wedding." "Why did you come?" No accusation in her voice, just genuine curiosity. I considered the question carefully. To prove to myself that I'd moved on, that seeing him wouldn't hurt anymore. And did it? Hurt? Not in the way I expected, I admitted. I thought I'd feel the old pain. Instead, I just felt sorry. For him. For you. I paused. For what could have been if he'd been braver? She nodded slowly. "He wants to continue with the marriage, says we can work through this, that the past is past." The irony wasn't lost on me. After 6 years of pretending Finn and I didn't exist, now Ethan wanted Emma to pretend yesterday never happened. "What will you do?" I asked. Emma finally removed the ring, placing it on the table between us with a soft clink. "I keep thinking about what you said to him yesterday. About Finn not growing up thinking he was a mistake, so shameful he had to be hidden." I stayed silent, waiting. "If he could hide something, someone so important," she continued, "what else might he hide when things get difficult? What kind of foundation is that for a marriage?" Before I could respond, the ballroom doors opened. Ethan stood there, scanning the room until he spotted us. His face hardened as he strode toward our table. "What is this?" he demanded, looking between us. "Some kind of ambush?" Emma simply gestured to the empty chair. "Sit down, Ethan. I'm not discussing this here." His voice low, urgent. "Not with her." "Her name is Naomi," Emma said calmly. "And she's the mother of your child." "A child I never asked for!" The words exploded from him, louder than he intended. Heads turned throughout the ballroom. In the sudden silence that followed, I reached into my purse and pulled out a worn piece of paper, the agreement he'd written 6 years ago, stating that he provided money for an abortion and absolved himself of all responsibility. I slid it across the table, not to Ethan, but to Emma. "I kept it," I said quietly, "not for blackmail or revenge, just as a reminder to never let someone else define my worth again." Emma read it silently, her expression hardening with each line. When she finished, she folded it carefully and handed it back to me. "Thank you for your honesty," she said. Ethan's face had gone ashen. "Emma, please. It was years ago. I was a different person." "Were you?" she asked. "Or are you the same person, just better at hiding it?" He turned on me then, desperation making him cruel. "Why couldn't you just stay away? You've managed for 6 years. Why show up now and destroy everything?" I met his gaze steadily. "I didn't come to destroy anything, Ethan. I came to face my past and move beyond it." I stood, gathering my purse. "What's being destroyed here isn't my doing. It's the consequence of choices you made long before yesterday." I turned to Emma. "I truly am sorry for your pain. You deserved better." As I walked away, I heard Emma's voice, clear and firm. Ethan, I can't marry someone who sees innocent life as an inconvenience to be erased. Outside, the spring sunshine felt different than it had that morning, cleaner somehow, more honest. I checked my phone, still an hour before I needed to pick up Finn. I walked to a nearby park and sat on a bench, watching children play on the swings and slides. For the first time in 6 years, I felt the full weight of anger and grief I'd been carrying lift away, replaced by something quieter but stronger. Not triumph, not vindication. Just the simple, profound relief of standing in my truth and finding it was enough to hold me up. My phone buzzed with a text from Mrs. Chen. Finn asking when you'll be home. Says he wants to show you his new Lego creation. I smiled, typing back, on my way. As I stood to leave, I glimpsed my reflection in the park's fountain. Straight-backed, clear-eyed, moving forward. Not as a victim or a warrior, just as myself. A woman who had faced her past and chosen her future. A mother heading home to her son,